Welcome learners to this new lecture on the course Media Ethics and Laws, which is your course MJM025 if you are pursuing MAJMC or PGJMC from School of Journalism and New Media Studies at IGNOU. And if you are a layperson who has joined us for today's video, all the more welcome. Because today's lecture is about a very general thing. It is about something that as citizens of India we must all be aware of. Today's class is about Indian Constitution. Friends, we are beginning today with block 2 of your course Media Ethics and Laws, which is the course MJM025. And this block is divided into 4 units. This is the block on media laws and it is divided into the units of Indian Constitution, media laws and constitutional frameworks, media laws and regulatory frameworks and initiatives of media laws. Today is the first unit, which is the unit on Indian Constitution. Now, the unit structure for unit 4, which is the first unit of block 2. This unit shall take you through the Constituent Assembly and then we shall discuss certain salient features of the Constitution like the preamble, federal system, fundamental duties, rights and others. Then we shall move on to the union and state legislatures, public services, certain provisions for special categories of citizens and how the amendments of the Constitution are done. This is a general overview of Indian Constitution in a very brief lecture. To introduce you to the concepts, this is the first unit of block Media Laws and it will acquaint you with the salient features of the Indian Constitution. It is important for you as media persons to understand the basic tenets of the Constitution to discharge your duties and function effectively. In the legal sense, Constitution of a country is a system of fundamental laws or principles for governance of a nation. And as citizens of a nation, we all must be familiar with it. After going through this unit, we expect you to have certain learning outcomes, which are to be able to describe the Constituent Assembly and the philosophy of the Constitution of India, to be able to discuss the salient features of Indian Constitution and to be able to explain the procedures of amendments or emergency, other such things of the Constitution. Friends, what is the Constituent Assembly and what was it with respect to the Indian Constitution? We were ruled by the Britishers, we were a British colony as you are all aware of. The British government for the first time explicitly accepted the demand of the Constituent Assembly in its offer of August 1940 and it reiterated its proposals in the Cripps Mission. So long before we gained total independence, we had put up a demand for being able to make our own constitution. This mission, which is the Cripps Mission, that allowed us to be able to frame the constitution and a Constituent Assembly was constituted. It had 389 members with approximately 1 member for every million of the Indian population. The framers of the constitution considered the best features of the constitutions of other countries and they adopted those features which best suited the Indian conditions and the needs of our nation. Therefore, the Indian Constitution has the distinction of being one of the most lengthy and detailed document. Now, for such a beautiful and wonderful document that we have, let us go through the salient features of our Constitution. I would divide the salient features in broadly kind of 10 features. The preamble, fundamental rights, directive principles of the state policy, fundamental duties, federal structure with a unitary bias, parliamentary system of the government, independent judiciary, the secular state, universal adult franchise and the provisions of being able to amend our constitution. These are the salient features of the Indian Constitution. Let's begin with the preamble. This is the introduction stating the objectives of our constitution. This defines India as a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. Each of these terms has its own in-depth, nuanced meaning. If you feel interested in this interesting document which is Indian Constitution, you can go on and read it further and understand these terms with more clarity and more conceptual knowledge. The preamble serves as the introductory statement reflecting the aspirations and values of the Constitution, which include justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. The next feature of our Constitution is the fundamental rights. The framers of the Constitution looked at the Bill of Rights of the American Constitution, the French Declaration of the Rights of the Man, the Irish Constitution of 1935, the Universal Human Rights Charter of the UNO, and they got inspired by all these documents, and then they framed a section in our Constitution, which is the section that is the rights of the citizens of India. These fundamental rights are the rights that are guaranteed as civil liberties to all the citizens. These rights provide citizens with essential freedoms and protect them from any arbitrary actions by the state. So even though you are governed by a government, you still have your own rights as citizens. The key rights include rights to equality, freedom of speech, protection from discrimination. Let's look at the basic wonderful rights that we have as citizens. The right to freedom of speech. That means that you can speak and you will not be directed by the state to give out your views only in a certain manner. You can speak your wish, your will, your views, your opinions. The right against exploitation. You are protected against exploitation by your employer, by other fellow citizens, and most importantly, by the state, by the armed forces, by the judiciary. The right to freedom of religion. In the state of India, you are free to practice the religion that you wish. The right to cultural and educational freedom. You can practice your own culture. You are free to study in any of the educational institutions in any part of the country. The right to constitutional remedies. As citizens, we can put public interest litigations. We can move the court with certain things that we feel must be amended in our Constitution. Certain remedies that need to be brought about with the changing demands of the society. As citizens, we all have these rights. But friends, these rights are not free from responsibilities. So we will also come to the section on fundamental duties, where you would realize that your rights are other person's responsibilities and other person's rights are your responsibilities. So you have the duty of protecting each other's rights along with your own fundamental rights. The next beautiful feature of our Constitution is the directive principles of state policy. These are guidelines for the state to ensure social and economic democracy. They aim to create a welfare state. So, directive principles of state policy are the principles that guide the state in making policies and laws aimed at establishing a just society and equal society. They are not enforced by the courts, but they are fundamental to the government. So, the government is asked to consider these. So, they are directive principles. They are not the laws. They are not the enforcements, but they are the principles that encourage the state to work towards a just, equal and properly governed society and state. Some directive principles of the state policy, to give you an idea, are: the state shall stand for the welfare of people. The state shall direct its policies towards securing adequate means of livelihood to all the citizens, a proper distribution of the material resources for the community of common good, the prevention of concentration of wealth to the common determinant, equal pay for equal work for both men and women, the protection of the strength and health of workers and avoiding circumstances which force citizens to enter vocations that can be unsuited for their age for their strength. The state shall provide free legal aid to ensure the opportunities for securing justice are not denied to any citizen for the reasons that can be economic or others. The state shall organize village panchayats. The state shall look at units of self-governance. If there is a case, the government gives you a lawyer. If you are to cast your vote, the government ensures that all the facilities are there. The polling booths, if you are disabled or elderly, then there can be people who can come to your home to take your vote. So the state has to ensure all these provisions. More so, other directive principles of the state policy, There are principles like the state shall secure the right to work, education, and public assistance in case of old age and sickness. The state shall ensure just and humane conditions of work and maternity relief. The state shall secure work, living wages, decent standard of life, leisure, social and cultural opportunities for people, and in particular promote cottage industries. The state shall secure the participation of workers in management of undertaking engaged by any industry. The state shall bring about the separation of judiciary from the executive. And this is a very, very major thing that the framers of the constitution were very careful about, where the judiciary is not part of the governance. So we have an independent judiciary. For justice, we can go to a body even against our own state. So there are cases where you can challenge your own government for your rights or for your welfare. So the directive principles of state policy also direct the state to ensure international relations, peace and harmony with your neighboring nations, to look at everything that makes the environment conducive for the citizens to survive and to thrive. Friends, this brings us to the next beautiful feature of our constitution, which is the section on fundamental duties. This is the list of moral obligations of the citizens, which encourages the respect for the constitution and for our national symbols. These duties are the moral obligations for all the citizens to uphold the constitution, promote harmony and protect the country's heritage and environment. Now the beauty lies here. These are not laws. These are not enforced upon you. You cannot be punished for them by the law, but you are encouraged to do this. So the constitution was being framed by people who assumed that India will be lived by responsible citizens, by people who would want to promote their nationality, who would be patriotic enough, who would be good enough to look at the rights of the other citizens. So when we were struggling for our independence from the Britishers, the Constituent Assembly members thought that now we have the nation in our own hands. So we have the responsibility for the nation and for each other's welfares. What are some of the duties that are fundamental to us as citizens? To abide by the constitution and respect its ideals and institutions like the national flag, the national anthem. To cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle for freedom. To uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. To defend the country and render national service when called upon. To value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. To promote harmony and spirit of the common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, regional or sectional diversities. To protect and improve the natural environment including forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife, to have compassion for all the living creatures, to develop scientific temper, humanism and the spirit of inquiry and reform. Friends, you see how wonderfully these systems have been put. How as citizens we have been told to follow these duties towards our nation and our fellow citizens. The next thing in our constitution is the federal system. Federalism is actually a system which looks at division of political power between the central and the state governments. Federalism is not new to India. It is existing in many countries and each country has its own characteristics depending upon its historical evolution and its societal requirements. The general trend until 1947, when India was trying to work towards this constitution, was that the federal system was with a measure of autonomy for all the provinces. But the Constituent Assembly modified this trend in the draft constitution because there was a major challenge that occurred. You know, when India got independence, we were not kind of one nation integrated by one government. We were different small provinces and these provinces had to be integrated into one nation. So if you would leave powers with the provinces or the states more than with the center, then there were a lot of communal issues. So when we faced this, then our Constituent Assembly modified the system and gave major powers to the center. The state has its own powers, but the major or the more robust powers remain with the center. the federal structure with unitary bias. You understand why. Now, what is it? While the Constitution establishes a federal system with clear divisions of power, it also grants the central government significant powers to ensure national unity and integrity. Division of powers between the central and the state government is what we mean by federal system. Strong central government with certain unitary features. The federal system of the Constitution gives supremacy to the Union Parliament and executives in all matters. In all matters even concerning the states, especially while making the laws, on items including the state list, appointment or dismissal of the governor, the dismissal of the state ministry and other such things. The Union has also got the authority to create new states or to adjust the boundaries of the states, and generally these are kind of restructuring of the Union or the states which is given to the central powers. So, when they look at welfare, when they think that politically and culturally we can benefit by dividing these states, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, Bihar and Jharkhand, Punjab, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh. So, all these states were, the borders are kind of divided, they were extended going by the federal system of the government. Then we have a parliamentary system of the government where we have a legislature which is Lok Sabha, which is the House of People, and Rajya Sabha, which is the Council of the States. Prime Minister is the head of the government. The Indian government operates under a parliamentary system where the executive is accountable to the legislature. This system ensures checks and balances within the government structure. We have union and state executives. The Constitution provides for a president who normally acts as the aid and advice to the Council of Ministers, which is headed by the Prime Minister. The President is indirectly elected for a term of 5 years and can be removed on the basis of impeachment proceedings brought against him by the Parliament. The Prime Minister occupies a key position in the government and symbolizes the ruling power structure of the country. This is the union and state executive division that we have. Another salient feature of our Constitution is independent judiciary. You know, the ensuring of laws for all the citizens in an equal and justice kind of a manner is required, and for that you need the judiciary to be independent of the state control. So, the judiciary is not under the government or political control. Supreme Court is the apex court with judicial review power. Friends, by now you understand that an independent judiciary ensures the protection of rights and enforcement of laws. The Supreme Court has the power to review the constitutionality of the laws, and it acts as the guardian of our Constitution. We in India are a secular state, and that is another salient feature of our Constitution. There is no official state religion. There is equal treatment to all the religions by the state. India is a secular state, meaning it does not favor any religion or treats all religions equally. This principle promotes religious harmony and tolerance among the Indian citizens. Another feature is the universal adult franchise, the right to vote for all the adult citizens. This ensures democratic representation. Every adult citizen has the right to vote, ensuring broad-based participation in the democratic process and representation in the governance. Not only do you have a right to vote, you also have the right to contest the elections. And therefore, you would have noticed that apart from the political parties which put their candidates during the elections, you also have a number of independent candidates that contest the elections. You have the universal adult franchise of voting, of contesting, of electing, of getting elected. So, this is a feature of our Constitution that keeps this largest democracy of the world standing and functional in a very, very smooth manner. One very important feature of a Constitution is amendability. So, you don't say that Constitution once framed so many years back is now the same Constitution. As the society changes, as the needs of the citizens change, the Constitution can be and has been amended time and again. This is a flexible yet rigid amendment process. This allows the Constitution to adapt to changing times while preserving the core principles. The Constitution can be amended to address new challenges and changing needs. However, the process is designed to be neither too easy nor too difficult, preserving the Constitution's core while allowing for necessary changes. An amendment of the Constitution can be initiated by introducing a bill in the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha for this purpose. While the amendment is possible, while the amendment is allowed, certain things have to be kept at the core values of the Constitution. These are: supremacy of the Constitution must be maintained, sovereignty and unity of India, democratic character of the polity, republican form of government, secular character of the Constitution, separation of powers between the state, centre and the executives, federal character, individual freedom of the citizens, equality of status and opportunity, and the rule of law being supreme. Unless all these are not being maintained, no amendments would be possible. So, the amendments can be done keeping in view all these principles. So, there are also nuances in the Constitution's execution. These were about the salient features of how our Constitution is made. But while it is being executed, there are many deep things to it. Some of them being the state and central relations. As we just discussed, there are state and central divisions in the powers, in the laws, but the state is still lower to the center in powers. So, there are legislative relations, administrative relations, financial relations, relations in planning and development, in trade and commerce. How do you ensure these? So, while the execution of the Constitution is being done, the directive principles of the state policy tell you this. There can be, arguments between the states on issues of water, because a river might be flowing from one state into another. So, then the center can intervene. So, how these relationships between the state, amongst the states and between the center and each state are being maintained is what needs to be taken care of by the citizens and also by the ruling parties. Public services. The standard and efficiency of the administration in any country depends on ultimate caliber of the people who are in public services. They have to be provided appropriate training to maintain integrity. So, Article 309 empowers the Parliament and the state legislature to regulate the recruitment and the conditions of service of the public service or the servants of the public and the union and the state respectively. Article 310 ensures that all members of the defence service or the civil services of the union or of Indian services hold office during the tenure of the president. This gives us clarity on that our Constitution is not only a written document, it is also ensuring that the execution is done in a proper manner. All your people in the defence services or public services should be able to work without a bias, with integrity, and should be able to transit their duties for larger public good. Our Constitution also has certain provisions relating to certain classes. While the Constitution is a document, it ensures that during the execution, there is an equal treatment and equal opportunities for all the sections of the society. The Constitution of India makes special provisions for the development of socially disadvantaged groups of the society. There is a full part 16 of the Constitution that deals with these provisions. Articles 330 to 342 of this chapter make provisions for reservations of seats for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and population represented by the Anglo-Indians in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies, claims of the SC/ST to services and posts, setting up of commissions to investigate the conditions of backward classes, and control of the union over the administration of scheduled areas for the welfare of these tribes and castes. Friends, as a nation, we are very diverse. There have been certain classes and sections of people who have not had the opportunity of equality in the history. So, the Constitution ensures that now they are given provisions to rise above the exploitations that they have had over the ages. And we are also a nation which has tribal populations. There are far-flung areas which still lack development. So, special provisions of ensuring reservations for such disadvantaged groups is given in our Constitution. There are also emergency provisions in our Constitution. Now, this is a very unique and challenging area. No part of the Constitution has been subject to such arbitrations or attacks by the critics than the part of the emergency provisions. Even the Constituent Assembly witnessed one of the most agitated scenes during the discussion of these provisions. Many prominent members of the Assembly opposed this inclusion in the Constitution as they thought that they would actually be inconsistent with the democratic systems. The objective of these provisions too is same as all other principles, rights, duties, all other statutes of our Constitution. Even the objectives of the emergency provisions in our Constitution is to safeguard the sovereignty, independence and integrity of India. To sum up, friends, I can say that in this unit we dealt with the Indian Constitution, the Constituent Assembly, its motives, purposes, certain salient features of the Constitution and certain nuances that are to be considered while putting this brilliant Constitution at work. Writing a document is one thing, but putting it to execution, doing and running a nation according to this document is another. So, this Constitution also ensures that thing of running is done smoothly in the larger benefit of the people. So, maintaining the integrity of the Indian state as a socialist, secular, democratic republic, we discussed certain features of the Constitution briefly. The teacher in me now again tells me to request you to go through the lecture simultaneously with the study material that you have been provided by IGNOU. If you look at the print material and if you also listen to this lecture, together you will be able to learn better. And that is our purpose of this video series. Friends, we have now started with block 2 of MJM 025 and here I conclude the first unit, which is unit 5 of the course on media ethics and laws. Wish you a very happy learning experience. Thank you.